I'm your host, Kinetic, and you're watching GameOnEnd.
Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Minimap add-ons. As always, we're going to use add-on control panel to enable and disable as we go. So let's take a look at the first add-on. Alright, our first add-on here is Basic Minimap. Okay, so we've got our minimap here. We can just left click and drag it wherever we would like. For now, we'll leave it here, just so we can see what we're looking at. So obviously, it's just done a simple square minimap with a thin little black border here. We still have, the location name here. All of our minimap buttons are still here. And then we have our clock and coordinates. Now, as you can see, if we mouse away from the map for a second, most of these icons, the map buttons, will fade out. Doesn't seem to be doing this one, so there may be some that it just can't control. We have a few simple things here. If you left click, you can ping on the map still. If you right click, it opens and closes the calendar. And if you middle click, it will open the tracking menu. These options here. So we have some controls to change the shape between round and square. We have auto zoom out, and that will basically let us zoom in and then just leave it, and after a time it'll go back to the default distance. If you uncheck that, it should allow you to zoom in and then just leave it there. Of course, then have to adjust back wherever you'd like it. You can also lock its place once you get it set wherever you'd like it. Then you can change the actual minimap size itself, and you can change the overall scale. They both do a little bit of a different thing. One's just doing the minimap itself, and the other one is doing the scale of everything, including the buttons and the names and all that stuff. All right, so now we have options for this black border here. We can change this to any color we want. We can also just have it do class colored and change the thickness of that. Now we have the option here to do this hiding. You can disable that if you'd like. Now these are the default minimap buttons that come with the game. You can choose whether to hide these all the time or to show them. So if you don't want the zone text or the clock or coordinates or any of that stuff, you can get rid of that. Then you can also change the location of and you can also change the precision of the coordinates and how frequently it updates. All right, over to the text options here. We can adjust basically everything here for the zone text. You can change the location of that. You can change the font and the font size. You can get rid of the shadowing. And then you can adjust colors for the type of zone you're in. Same options for the clock. And same options for the coordinates. Here's where you can adjust what those different clicks do. Now by default, like I said, right click is the calendar. You have middle mouse is the tracking menu, and then left click will do pings. If you want to do any of these other options, you can put it to basically whatever you'd want here for your mouse or right click options. And then you have the option to have multiple profiles. So you have specific characters that you want, different things on, you can change them to a second profile and then let everybody else use the default, however you like. So it's a pretty great, simple add-on. It does basically what most people would want there. It's pretty straightforward and easy to get around. Okay, so let's take a look at our next add-on. We will look at Chinchilla Minimap. Okay, so we can see by default here, it's loaded up this cool little in the corner minimap look here, which I like. Kind of scoots it right up to the edges of your frame. We can right click to take a look at the options here. Okay, so by default, it's unlocked, so we can move this around. We can lock it into place. Okay, then we have the options here of how to get into this menu. You can turn this off if you want and just have to pull it up manually, or you can change it to a middle or other mouse button. Then right here by default, the tracking menu is the middle click. You can also change that to whatever you like. Okay, now this overall just disables the add-on temporarily if you need to. We have this option, which I believe is built into the default UI as well, but to have the map follow your direction you're facing instead of always have north being up. We have the size. We can have it go transparent when you're in combat, and you can control how far it fades out while you're in there. Okay, then we have the shapes here, and there are a lot. So this is a curved bottom right. If you want to move it over into this corner, and then for bottom right, and for bottom left. Okay. And then now we have some more basic ones. And this is like a U-shaped one. So basically an option for any side you want to attach it to, and then of course the regular round and square. And then you can go to these like teardrop ones, where it's basically just one corner. So you can really do whatever you want with this as far as those shapes. And then you can change this highlighting here. You can see the yellow. You can also just make it the border transparent. Okay. And then you can change the actual texture of that. Okay, and then you can adjust the thickness of then you can adjust the offset of the border. If you want to do something unique with the design or do an inlined one. And then you can change the overall opacity of that. And that includes, you can see here, this is the button border opacity. So you can even get rid of that if you just want buttons without borders on them. And now you have options for the things that it still shows. It can be compass arrows, which you can adjust coordinates. Of course, you can make movable. You can put that somewhere else. You can adjust all of this, the font, size, position. Okay, now this is an option to show an expanded minimap, and you can assign that to a key binding and just have the button toggle between the bigger thing or whatever. You have your current location. Do all these adjustments for that as well. We have our move buttons. And so this lets you individually handle the calendar button or move it somewhere else. And you can do that with the clock, garrison button, instance difficulty, all this stuff, looking for group mail. So if there's any button that you want to just move maybe down by your action bars or something, like the leave dungeon, tracking buttons, world map button, any of those things, you can detach individually from the map and then move them around wherever you like. Then you can turn off the pings if you don't want those. You can also turn on this option, and then it'll just say in chat, if somebody else in your party pings on the map, it'll say who pinged. Okay, this is for the position of the map. You can keep it from dragging it off the screen, which is nice. Quest trackers. This lets you move quest tracker and have a button to collapse. Turn on arrange circles. So if you're raiding or doing PvP or anything where you need to see if you're in range of heals or whatever, or anything, you can turn this on, and then you can have it basically show, and you can set this radius based on, you know, your longest spells or the maximum range you want to be. So it's a nice quick way to either show things you need to be in range of, like healing, or out of range of, like you know, boss abilities that need you to spread out or whatever. You can quickly see if anybody's in range of you and which direction you need to move. And that's actually a really nice feature for that type of use. Okay. Then we have all the options of what we want to see here. So if we don't need to see, you know, world map buttons, tracking, calendar, lots of stuff we can show or hide here. Okay, now I believe that the first toggle here is for the expanded minimap. So if it's gold, it will show on both versions, the regular and the expanded. And if it's silver, it'll only show when you expand out or hover. And then unchecked is that it will never show. Okay, these are little things for the dots that show up on the minimap. Like if you're tracking, quests or flight paths or location of party members or whatever, you can have those things show or not show. You can change the style of the dots, and you can even have them blink. Okay, this is for zooming. Same thing, wheel zoom and auto zoom, and then the time that it resets. So you can have it automatically zoom out. If you zoom in, it'll zoom out after this amount of time. And then again for profiles and stuff like that. Okay, so lots of options here. Looks nice, and I really like some of these unique designs you can do to put it, in the location that really works for your layout best. All right, let's take a look at the next add-on. Okay. We're going to take a look at Obelisk Minimap. Okay, now this one's actually an older add-on, but I left it in just to show that, sometimes just because something hasn't been updated in a while doesn't mean that it's not going to work. You always just got to install things and test them out. If you're getting a lot of errors from them, then I would recommend probably looking for something else. But in some of these cases, an add-on may have features that are unique to it, and it may just be the one that you like. So don't be afraid to try things if they're a little bit older. Just know that, you may get some errors and bugs, whatever. If it's really just not working, if too many of the core system things have been changed in the UI or whatever, then it may not work anymore. But in things like the minimap, it really hasn't changed in a long time. So this add-on, Obelisk, by default is loading up this torn map kind of look. It's got this little banner here for the location. What it does here is hides all of the map buttons, and it moves them down to this little box, which you check on the arrow to show things, and it tries to move what it can into this box. Some things it doesn't grab by default, and they just stick up here. I'm not sure if there's a way to force them down into the box or not. And that's kind of a thing with a few of these add-ons, but anyways, it hides a good chunk of them, including all like the default in-game stuff, which gets moved down here. Moves your clock down to this little shaded area. So let's look at the options here. Okay. So we have a couple of things here for shape. Okay. And we can change the scale of it. We can change where this information frame is, whether it's at the top or bottom. Okay. And then this button collector here, you can change how many rows it'll show here or how many columns wide it is. That's the options. It's very simple, very straightforward. You can still left click and ping. But super simple if you just want something to give you something other than the default look, but don't really want a ton of options. It's great, still works fine, and looks good. Okay, so let's take a look at the next add-on. We have SexyMap. Okay, so this next one by default is giving us this cool rotating runes glowing thing. So we can right click on it to bring up the options, and we have the options to lock it in place. Right now we can move it around. We can keep it from going off the screen. Same option to have it follow us or always be north. Okay, so we can disable the right click to bring up the configuration if you don't want that. You have the scale options. We can hide these north tags. you have, of course, profiles. Now, the nice thing here is that you, instead of just having a default profile that loads every time, it can be per character. But if you set this up one time, I would recommend clicking this first. It'll reload your UI, and then you can make whatever changes you want. And then on any other character, first time you log in, you right-click, you bring this up and hit Use Global Profile, and it'll reload the UI, and then you'll have the profile from the other character. So you only have to set this up once. But if for some reason you wanted something a little unique, you know, say like goes with your class or whatever, you can do that. Okay, so we can expand this here and see all the options here. But first, let's just take a look at some of the presets that this comes with. Okay, so we have the starting one here. We have a cool diamond shape one here, which also is doing a diamond shape for the map. This is kind of a unique one. It's got this glow to it. Burning sun. Electric. Jewels. Parchment look with this little clear border here. This is another kind of glowing runes one, but red. This is kind of adding this kind of tile look here. Simple square. This is a different rune one. And a wooden frame. Okay. Now there's also some user submitted presets. Got clouds here. Diablo one, which I like that one a lot. Emerald portal, kind of a druid thing. Faded square. Shaman runes. And lastly, space. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some of these features. I'm going to go to one of these glowing ones because you can see some of these things a lot better here. So if you really want to get into the details of this add-on, you can really change anything you want here. If you're adjusting these borders, you can basically pull up one of these presets, load that, and then you can start adjusting from there. So if one of those was really close to something you like, but you just didn't like the size of it, the transparency of it, the color of it, all of that can be adjusted. So you pull up the preset that you like, then you can adjust the size of the shape of the minimap, and then you can adjust the actual border itself. So you can add a background to that border. This all gets pretty in-depth, so we won't show off all this stuff directly, but you can do this stuff. Here's the fading of things. If you want to apply a texture or a tint to that texture, you can stop the rotation. If you just want it to be a static image, you can change the speed of the rotation. You can adjust the scale. So right here, we're looking at this blue glowing portion of it. And you can nudge that around. You can adjust the actual size of the circle. Okay, now this is the first rune. So as you can see here, this border is made up of these 4 pieces. So if you only want one of them or 2 of them, you can get rid of these. So we'll show here, for example, if we see which one we're working with. Okay, so let's say we like that one. Okay, but this one, maybe with the rounded out edges, maybe we don't want that. So we can simply remove that and leave these. And of course, you can reset it if you really mess something up. You can also add a new border to this. So if we want to add back a new thing, and then you can browse through, textures that are in the game. You can also add your own. There's really like a lot you can do here. I pretty much stick to the presets, but the ones that I like, I end up just finding one and then maybe tweaking just a bit of the colors and stuff like that. But so just to show that, let's say we want that to be a little faster, but see, this has got these little light glowing things, so maybe we don't want that. We can get rid of that one if we don't like it. But say we want to do kind of a mixed color thing. Transparency. So you can really get creative here. You can do whatever you want with this. Kind of sky's the limit with this add-on. So let's jump down. We can take a look at the other options here. So this is for the Minimap buttons. You can let the add-on handle the button dragging, which is probably what you want to do, because if you change the shape of your map, you want it to follow the border and not, go in weird directions. You can also lock it so that you can't accidentally move buttons. You can change the radius if you want to spread them off the map a bit. And then you can also let it control the visibility for those buttons. So you can have buttons fade out after a second and then show back up on mouse over. You can have it never show up or always be visible. Okay. And then these are some of the more advanced things like the garrison buttons or dungeon difficulty, new mail, queue. And then this is whatever add-on buttons that it recognizes. So if there's ones that you don't want to see, then you can do that. Okay. Options for the clock, font, color, background color, border color, when you can see it. Coordinates, same thing. This lets you move some of the other things that tend to be tied to the map. So if you want to adjust where the map is and you want to move the quest log, this is the little armor guy when it shows when your armor is broken or yellow. And this is the vehicle seat mover. That's to shift seats when you're in a vehicle. And then you can lock them in place once you got them where you want them. This is map pings. And lastly, the zone text at the top there. So same thing, you can move it wherever you like. You can have it show when you like. So like I said, you got a ton of options here. You can go crazy, make it as custom as you like. Lots of shapes to play with and options to adjust. All right, so let's take a look at the next add-on, SquareMap. Okay, so now that we're in options overload, we've jumped down to one of the simplest ones here. This basically just squares out the map, gives you a nice thin little border here, shrinks down a little bit some of the in-game icons. Okay. Now you can Alt and left click to move it where you'd like. Your pings still work. You can see it's moved the location down here in the map, moved the clock here into the map. So a little cleaner, a little simpler. Okay, so we'll take a look at the options here. And again, simple and easy. You can choose what you want to see here. And that's it. So a nice and simple one, very easy to use. I think we've got a lot of options here for people who want to get very in-depth with an add-on, and for people who just want something super simple, there's a couple options here as well. So let's take a look at one last add-on that is not specifically adjusting the minimap, but is a great add-on nonetheless. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of other add-ons that aren't specifically adjusting the minimap, but are great nonetheless. This first one is Minimap Button Bag. Okay, so maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't, but all of our add-on buttons are gone, and we have this one nice button here for Minimap Button Bag. Now, it leaves by default a couple of the in-game ones alone, but for all of your add-on buttons, which if you have a lot of add-ons, can really be filling up the screen and can be hard to see, and a lot of times they tend to overlap each other, and even if you try and spread them out around your minimap, you know, depending on how many add-ons you have the buttons shown for, it can still get kind of confusing. So what I love about this is that this add-on just grabs everything and throws it into this one button. You left click it, they all expand out, and then you can see everything you have there. Now, if there's something that you want left out, you simply control right click, and that one add-on is left alone. So if you have something that you regularly use, like sorting your bags or stuff like that, then you may want this one left visible, but for other stuff, you may not need it. So you can choose, and it's super simple. If there's something that you took out and you realize you want to put back in, you just control right click it again, and it re-adds it into the list. And done. Not a lot to it, not a lot of options, but to me, visually, a very impactful add-on, which I love. Okay, and one last one here. NeatMinimap. Okay, so this last one adds a feature that is part of a lot of those other add-ons we looked at, but by the default UI doesn't have, which is simply this, in that you can see we can't see any of the add-on buttons again, but they're just hidden. So simply adds a timer to it. So you hover over the map, you can see the buttons you need, and as soon as you move off, then they go away. Okay, so we've got a few little options here. We can have it add in certain things. And then we can change the delay of how long those things go away. Okay, so two super simple options here for just cleaning up your minimap. If you don't specifically care about totally overhauling the look of it, but you just want to be able to make it a little cleaner. Okay, so let me know in the comments which ones you tried out and which ones ended up being your favorite. As always, I appreciate you all and hope to see you in the next video. That will do it for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, remember, pressing the like button is absolutely free. Subscribe and stay tuned for more Game on End.